Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Before I start, if you are not following me over on my Instagram or on my other socials, I'll have those linked in the description box below. And if you have not seen any of my other previous influencer tips related videos, I will have those linked in the description box as well. So the first mistake that you might be making when pitching to brands is, one, you are talking way too much about yourself in your media kit or your initial pitch email. Stop talking about yourself too much. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Brands do not care about how great you are. What they care about is how working with you is going to benefit them. So make sure to highlight just that in your initial pitch. Why should the brand work with you? What benefit are they going to gain? Whether it's exposure, whether you have a crazy amount of swipe ups and you know you can drive traffic to, a product or their website, you have a crazy amount of sales on Like to Know It. Include that information in your pitch. If you don't think you have some sort of statistic or leverage that you can give the brand, trust me, you do. You just need to find it. There's something there that you can highlight and just make it sound super glamorous for the brand, even if you don't think it's glamorous yourself. Trust me, if you look hard enough, you will find some sort of way that the brand can benefit from working with you. The second mistake that you might be making is definitely controversial. I hear people talk about this all the time, and here's my personal take on it. I also come at it from a business and entrepreneurial standpoint, so definitely take that into consideration. I do not recommend putting your rates in your media kit or sharing your rates with a brand until either they specifically ask for them or you absolutely have to. Why? Because it's plain and simple. You might be selling yourself short, and why would you want to do that? Why would you want to sell yourself short if later you found out that the brand was actually working with 3 times the budget that you initially kind of pitched for? What if you have a rate of $200 and you came out right away and told the brand, this is my rate for an Instagram photo, it's $200, and then the brand is like, okay, great, like that's no problem, we are not negotiating whatsoever, that's great for us. But then later you might talk to other influencers who are working on the same campaign, who have around the same, following or reach or very similar statistics to you, and you find out that they're getting paid $600 for one Instagram post and you're getting paid $200. That is your loss, and you are your own advocate in this industry, so I highly recommend just not putting your rates out there unless you absolutely have to start. Another reason why I just generally don't recommend doing this is because working with a small business or a boutique versus a very large corporation that's been around for quite some time, their budgets are most likely going to look completely different from one another. So putting your rates out there as a very general baseline, I just don't recommend, because your rates will look different based off of working with the biggest company in the beauty industry versus working with a very up and coming new beauty brand in the industry. Your rate is going to look completely different based off of those two different situations. So I would just overall recommend just not including it to start. Maybe include it in the second email back to them after you are talking about specific deliverables that they're looking for or that you're going to be offering them, and then talking about a budget after that and seeing if they even have a budget and what their budget looks like, trying to get them to bring up the first number. In business, it's a back and forth game of who's going to say the number first and then going off of that number. So for your own sake, I truly just recommend not including your rates to start. Okay, hi, future me coming in here. I'm editing this now and I just want to add this little tidbit in. The reason why it's controversial in the industry is just because people will say, well, what's the harm in including your rates to start? Maybe that will push them to actually want to pay you. However, I strongly back my initial statement of you are putting yourself in a box if you do that, and I think it's just best to bring up rates after you talk a little bit about what they're kind of expecting or what you are wanting to create for the brand. So I don't think it's the best thing to put them in first, and I back that, especially coming from a micro influencer standpoint. I don't have the time to be putting myself in a box and losing out on opportunities or losing out on more money that could be benefiting me. Like, some people might be like totally okay with that and might be like able to, you know, lose that opportunity and lose that money. But for me, I'm a micro influencer. I am really just pushing for what's going to benefit me, what makes the most sense, and to me, putting your rates in to start does not make sense at all. Coming from a business standpoint, not at all. The third mistake that you might be making is that you are not including enough stats or are not including any stats at all in your media kit or your initial email. Stats are going to be the main thing that sells you. Like, that is the most important point. That is what a brand wants to see. Stats tell everything, and they are going to tell exactly what benefit you can bring to working with that brand. So personally, my media kit is like 95% stats. Of course, I don't have every single statistic in there. I just have the statistics that are most important. But when you look at my media kit, you see numbers, and numbers are the most important thing in all aspects of business. That is the most important thing. Numbers tell a lot, and they are extremely important. They also just are super eye-catching, and a brand might literally have 10 seconds to look over your media kit, and if they see numbers, that's going to be the main thing that they see, and that's going to draw their attention. Think about your media kit in terms of a resume. Usually a brand or a person won't look at your media kit or resume for more than just a few seconds. And one thing that will stand out most in that opportunity for them to see your media kit is going to be numbers. So make sure to include them in there. Also, I'd include some important numbers in your initial email as well. Again, going back to my first point, just include what is your like biggest selling point. What's the best thing that you could share with that brand that is going to catch their eye? Mistake number 4 is that you are not hyperlinking or including anything in bold in your initial email. Now, the bolding isn't as important. However, I personally do love bolding specific key points that I want to stand out, such as if I'm including a statistic or a specific number. I think those are super important to bold. I think bolding very key terms such as return on investment, engagement, things like that, I think are also very important. Just those key points that when you look at that email, you are immediately drawn to those specific keywords or numbers. As for hyperlinking, again, you just want to make it as easy on the reader as possible. So why would you not hyperlink? If you are including the terms Instagram, TikTok, if you are talking about any of those platforms or your blog or anything like that in the email, you want to make sure that those words or your at, whatever it is, your name, your title, that it's hyperlinked to a specific place where they can easily click and find you, see exactly what you're talking about. It just makes their life so much easier, rather than if they read the email and then they're like, okay, well, I don't have any links for this specific person. Now I've got to go to Instagram and look them up myself. That's just taking extra time out of their day, time that they often don't want to take nor have. And number 5, the last mistake that you might be making is that you are not following up on your initial email, or you are not following up enough on your emails. This is something I learned from the start, which I'm very thankful for. I've certainly learned a lot about following up since then, but you need to make sure that you are following up with your contacts for at least, you know, anywhere from 3 to 5 times, I'd say. Usually 4 is like a good happy medium for me, but you definitely need to be following up with them, because I'll give you just a few reasons. I'm sure you can think of more. 1, your contact is likely getting so many different emails throughout the day, probably thousands. Your email is going to quickly get lost in that group, and if you are not pitching at the right time for that specific person, like if you aren't catching that person right at the moment where they are going through their emails, your email might get lost for, you know, quite a few days, a few hours, and then more and more emails will come in and your email will continue to get lost. So you constantly want to be bumping that email to the top of their inbox as often as possible. Of course, there's a boundary that you want to keep in mind. Number 2, they might see your email but might forget to actually respond, or, you know, something comes up and then they completely forget about it. Like, there's so many things and different scenarios that can happen. Following up is not annoying, it's not a bad thing, it's just you being your own advocate, because you can't wait for other people to make things happen. You need to be the advocate, you need to be doing these specific things to make the opportunities happen. I used to follow up every week. I have a list to contact, and on that list I'll have all of the information with the follow update, so I know when I go to that list I can just go and see all of the different contacts that I need to follow up with. And I used to do this every week. However, I recently added the Streak browser extension onto Google, and that allows me to see when my email has been read. So now I have an idea of, okay, well, I reached out to this person 24 hours ago and they just saw it 2 hours ago, so I'll give them some time, but I'll probably follow up in about 3 to 4 days after I send that email. If a brand has not seen my email at all yet, I again will just follow up every week for 3 to 5 times. I'll feel it out and go from there. But again, you need to be following up. Sometimes I don't even get a reply from a brand until the 3rd or 4th email, maybe even the 5th. Like, it really does happen, and if you're not following up, that's just a lost opportunity that you could potentially be missing out on. Hopefully you were able to learn something from this video and gain kind of like a new perspective. I definitely could think of more mistakes you might be making in terms of pitching, negotiating, like literally so many on so many different topics. So if you want to see more within this series, I'd love to film more of those for you. Just let me know what you want to see. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you aren't already. I will see you in the next one.